A very warm welcome to our April edition of the Global 50/50 online conversations. But before we kick off, I need to say a few words, not about the Pass It On Network, but specifically about our beloved co-founder, Dr. Jan Hively. You might or you might not know that in October last year, while shopping, Jan fell and she hit her head and broke a leg. And that led to brain scans that revealed a tumor. The first diagnosis was that it was a benign tumor and low grade, and it wasn't expected to grow very fast. And they allowed her to have the surgery for her leg. And since then, she's learned to walk again and has been convening her poetry circle and getting back to her work at home, as Jan would be wont to do. However, subsequent scans were less optimistic, although surgery was not decided upon. However, this weekend we had an alarming message from Jan's daughter, Kate, saying that the tumor had grown considerably and was causing seizures that had left Jan fairly unresponsive, although she has rallied for some lovely, sweet, lucid moments. We expect, Kate said, that she will pass within the next hours or within the day or two. And she asked us to hold her and Tom in our hearts. That was yesterday. But I must tell you that I got a call from Jan's daughter this afternoon, about an hour and a half ago before this meeting. And she said that Jan was awake and alert. I phoned her and we had an amazing conversation. She was keen to know about our 50/50 today, and she said she was so sorry that she didn't think she could make it.
My gosh.
She told me to make sure to pat everybody on the back for the amazing achievement of getting the drafting of the UN Convention on the Rights of Older People to this point. Since then, we've had even more wonderful news from Kate, and I'm overjoyed to share it with you. Kate said, amazingly, Mom has rallied, and we're now on course for restorative care with antibiotics for pneumonia and likely discharge in the next day or so to home hospice. It is quite the most amazing turnabout, she said. More info to come, but what a resilient spirit. For anyone who knows Jan, her mantra is meaningful work, paid or unpaid through the last breath. Dear friends, what a living legacy we have to continue to build our Pass It On network. Because, and never ever forget this, we are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the pioneers of this major demographic shift, and we have this outstanding example to follow. Thank you, Jan, and we wish you speedy recovery. Osnet, could you take over?
Yes, I'm overcome with emotions too. You might be as well, everybody here. And we thought that we might take this opportunity for the next 10 or maybe 15 minutes to just raise your digital hand, and maybe you have a brief reflection or wishes or appreciation to Jan. This will be recorded and we can share it with her. And as you know, we're all in her heart, and this will probably lift her spirit and ours too. So, Vermada, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Osnet, and thank you, Moira, for the update as well. I think I joined everyone with receiving the news with much sadness a couple of hours ago, but I'm so heartened to hear Moira's feedback. But what I wanted to share though is I clicked onto the link to leave a message for Jan, and I think Osnet will probably put the link on our chat so that others can do that as well. But one of the things that I found most amazing when I clicked on and I started putting together my message for Jan was this immense sense of grace with which Jan's daughter and family have rallied around Jan, respecting her wishes, making sure that she travels through this part of her journey with dignity. And as sad as I was, I left that page feeling inspired and feeling hopeful that Jan has managed to create this kind of environment. So even through this difficult time, she continues to bless us with lessons of how it can be. And so for that, I'm immensely grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Famada. And for everybody, I put a link in the chat for this portal where you can leave a message for Jan. Verna, you raised your hand.
Yes, joyful gratitude, please. She's created a model for me, not only for my aging, but for my work. So I think it's important that she know that even people she doesn't even know or know well are really moving in her example. And it's important that she know that. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Verna. Valerie.
It is awfully sad, and we all know that it's coming. I had to have tests recently for cancer, which proved negative, which was a great relief. But you know, I will be 84 in July, 4th of July, American Independence Day. And we all must face that this is going to happen and make plans. That's important because unless you make plans and tidy up, I've started doing a bit of decluttering. It may sound a silly thing to do, but it will leave things tidier. We don't know what the next excitement will be, but I don't believe the end is the end. I think it's a new beginning.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you.
Love very much. Love to Jan.
Yeah.
Lisa Borchetta.
Yes, Lisa.
I joined you a couple of minutes late, and I love Jan dearly, and I'm not exactly sure what happened. Is she ill? Did she pass? I don't know what you're talking about, and it's because I got into the call a couple of minutes late.
So here's what happened. Jan had medical emergency related to a tumor in her brain, and in the past few days she's been in critical condition, critical care. There's been a turnaround this morning where she's responding to medical treatment, and the medical team is optimistic that she may be able to go home for hospice care in a day or two. And we're all hoping that this is what's going to take place. What we're doing right now here is because this has been such a roller coaster of emotions in the last few days, and nothing is assured, is we are sharing appreciations and hopes and reflections for just a few minutes before we go to our initial program. So Lisa, if you have anything to share, that's the time.
I do have something I would love to say about Jan. Is I met her several years ago now at a Life Planning Network meeting here in Massachusetts. And I was talking a little bit about intergenerational work, and that had been important to me since I was a teenager. And Jan came over and sat down next to me and she said, "Oh, I think we're going to be friends." And we did become friends. And I love her dearly. I was very happy to get to spend an overnight with her shortly before she moved from the Cape out to the West Coast. And she's an amazing woman, and I wish her a smooth and gentle experience with what she's going through.
Mm.
I think I'm sure there's so many people whose lives she's touched and who love her and admire her.
Yeah. Yeah. And three of them are raising their hands to speak. Isaac, briefly.
Yeah, thank you. This is the first time that I was hearing of this, so I really appreciate the warmth and delicate nature that you presented it with. Thank you very much. The only thing that I just wanted to say was I first spoke with Jan. I was looking through my notes in my old notebook. The first time that we had a formal conversation together was in December 2023. And I think that that was the moment that I realized my work is specifically in digital access for older adults here in Massachusetts. But I realized just how much my line of work goes beyond that in terms of, the human experience, what it means to age. And as a younger person, I'm 24 years old now. It's been quite an amazing adventure to learn and soak all of this knowledge in. And so I just wanted to express my, I don't have my words formulated all the way, unfortunately, so I apologize, but I just wanted to share my appreciation into the universe for Jan and welcoming me with such open arms into our discussions and conversations and allowing me to be a part of this group. And I wish that wherever she is and yeah, wherever she is, that she's doing all right, and that we have her in our hearts. And yeah, just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac.
Yes, I've got only 4 words to summarize what my appreciation, my esteem for Jan. When first I met with her on virtually, I found her motherly, even grandmotherly, reassuring, protective, and positive, which created conditions for me to continue with Payan, with Moira at our side. So thank you very much, Jan. You are in my prayers. Thank you.
Luan, and then Peter, and then we'll end with Joyce.
Thank you. I thought at first I was too emotional to talk, but I realized that emotions are good. And I guess, I love Jan like all of you, and I've known her for 20 years, and I'm thinking about her visits to California and the Muir Woods, and so many memories come. But the one I keep thinking about, and you said it today here already, we are the ones who are meant to be here. And she said that at a conference years and years ago, that, whoever shows up is meant to be here, and all of us are meant to be here today. And that feeling keeps coming back, and I've shared that with so many people, that we're the ones that are meant to be here, and we're here today. So thank you. Love you, Jen.
Peter
So-
Whitehouse, yeah.
Thank you. So I just wanted to thank Jan for her message to the group, where she thought of congratulating us for the work we've done over the years, certainly guided by her, because it's an illustration how she's always thinking of other people. And in that, she's a model for all of us. So thank you, Jan.
Joyce, you're the last speaker, and then we're going to move on.
Well,
now.
actually, Pete, and what Peter just said is something that Jan has said over and over to us through the years that we've known her, either on the Cape or now that she's out west. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned, that Jan mentioned several years ago to me, she said, you live each day as though it's your last. Be prepared and live life to the fullest. And remember, and that's the one that Moira started with, we are the ones who need to be here, and whatever work we do, you do it well until the very last breath. We love you, Jan. And Luann, I'm with you. It's emotional, and yet emotions are good, and we all feel very similarly about someone we love dearly.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Joyce. Yeah, I actually want to go back to something Jen likes to say again and again and again, that it's our right to work, paid or unpaid, till the last breath. And what a role model. We will come back to this but right now, we already heard how Jan wanted us to continue the work and how passionate she is about the work we all do together and where she and Moira started it. And so we're going to continue the conversation today, our discussion today, with the same type of resilience and spirit that has always guided her and us. And today we wanted to speak about, to update everybody about what is happening with our rally for the human rights for all the people. It's been the work has been going on since Pacitor Network started, even before. And with us today are Margaret Young, who is the founder of Age Knowable and the chairperson of Global Alliance for the Rights of All the People, GAROP, and her two partners, Famada Shaman from South Africa. She's the chief executive of the Association for the Ages in South Africa, and Vijay Naradu from Mauritius, who's the lead person of the Commission for the Rights of All the People of Dimois in Mauritius. And they're going to give us an update on what has happened. Actually, some amazing things in the past couple of weeks regarding the UN Interagency Group for Aging and the Rights of All the People. And what is it that we can do from now on as far as activism, advocacy, and everything else to make it all happen? So, Margaret, over to you.
Well, thank you. I think it's almost meant to be that today we talk about a topic that's very dear to Jan and to Moira, who started us on this path of human rights of all the persons. I think it was 2018 when the two of them say, hey, we are the ones we're waiting for. And they went to the UN and got accredited and then got us all into participating, contributing to this work. So we're grateful for that. So I think last June, at the kind of midway point, we had a celebration of all the great work we did at Pass It On Network, and then we provided an update. So up to that point, the open-ended working group on aging happened in May. We landed on a key decision, which says that, the group at New York, including member states, civil societies, and NHRIs, acknowledge that there are gaps in the protection of human rights of older persons. After so many years, there's acknowledgement of gaps, and that there are recommendations on what to do about it. And one of the recommendations is to have a UN convention. So since our update in June on that, in August, this decision called 14.1 was tabled at the General Assembly. So General Assembly at the UN means all the member states are there and they go through a whole bunch of agenda items, including this one. And when they reviewed the decisions, they had, this particular document, they had 3 comments. One is that thank you for the open-ended working group on aging for all the work that was done over the 14 years. So has fulfilled its mandate with its recommendations. Second, the General Assembly urged all the UN agencies to look at the decisions, which means A, that there are gaps, and B, there are recommendations on how to close them, and take them into the respective mandates to see what they can do about it. And then the third thing is to have a high-level meeting this year about that. So fast forward, so knowing that's a space that, now we have to go ahead to kind of push even harder. Civil society really focused on the Human Rights Council session that happened in March, April this year. So it starts kind of like middle of March and into middle of April. So we coordinated and then Pass It On the network. It's a member of GAROP. So there were like discussions around, okay, how do we advocate, what messages? For those who can go to New York, how can we contribute? For those who cannot, not New York, to Geneva, how do you contribute? For those of us who might not be able to travel to Geneva, how can we contribute? And so forth. So there were 3 informal negotiations, which means that the member states were talking about a draft resolution to start establishing a drafting group, right? So that's really good news. So the core group of, there are core countries, including Argentina, Brazil, Philippines, Gambia, to say that we want to now start to establish a drafting group. So what they did at the beginning of the session was draft such a document as recommendation. Then throughout the weeks of the Human Rights Council, there were informal negotiations, so about 3 of them, where they're talking about the pros and cons and debating, and then civil society can give input. So we were there to help provide input. Then on April the 3rd, the key moment came, because April the 3rd and 4th is when they read through all the resolutions throughout Human Rights Council and start making decisions. So our resolution was being tabled. There were once again like a lot of strong support from different countries. Actually, with this particular resolution, up to the point of last week, there were about 45 countries that supported it, which is really great. And I can send that information out separately if we're interested in knowing. For example, like South Africa is co-sponsored, quite a few Latin America states sponsored, quite a few African states and European states and so forth. So this is really good news that there's that momentum. But of course, there were loud voices that said, oh, maybe still not time. I don't believe there's enough gaps. So there were those kind of objections on the table. And then as civil society, what we did was we kind of say, no, but look at it this way. Look at, so we put a counter arguments and so forth. So at the end of the day, there were a lot of debates. And then there were a couple of one particular group that says no, and that was China, who actually came out openly and said, no, we don't have consensus. So we were quite worried because if it becomes a trend that more member states start to say they don't agree that there's consensus, then it will go to a vote. But luckily, it was only China who openly said that they don't agree. So therefore, the chair took the opportunities and said, does anybody else do we need to go to a vote? And there was a silence for 2 seconds, and then the chair said, okay, it's adopted. So the end great news is that, yes, we now have it on the table to start drafting a resolution. So what's in the proposal is to set up a intergovernmental working group, which means member states, together with older people and civil society participation in a process where they will have 3 days of work that will happen start next year, right? So that's kind of directionally agreed on. So there's nothing about the particulars of what the content look like, but it's really procedural. But the tricky part is to fund all this is about $900,000. So that $900,000 has to be put onto a budget for the General Assembly to actually support it. If it doesn't support, let's say they say, I have no funds, it's not supported, then the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights will have to find other ways to fund this. So which could mean a little bit of delay or some jiggling or whatever. So what's happening right now is a few things that we need to kind of keep in mind. First is there's some opportunity to influence our various governments to say, hey, the decision has been, the resolution has been passed at the Human Rights Council. We need you to support it. So that's kind of the immediate. On April 30th, the GAROP will have a meetings for its member, which includes all of us on Ambassador Network, if you would like to join, to kind of further debrief this opportunity and talk about next steps. So, we'll get the link out and then you're welcome to join, get into that discussion and to kind of like either, for updates or for comments you have. And then I think aside from drafting, because one of the things we talk about in the drafting is that it has to be inclusive and meaningful. What that means is that we don't want, while lawyers have very good expertise and we have human rights lawyer, we don't want it to be a legal document. We want it to be a document that reflects the needs of older people in all diversities. We know we cannot cover everybody, but we want that diversity. So we need to have to figure out a way of how to channel that feedback in. So another way to do that is either say to the governments, hold consultations with us about this document. Do it internally in your country. And then we can also see at GAROP what it is that we can do to facilitate some consultations. We just need to find some funding to set that up. So really get yourselves embedded into the process to provide feedback. Okay, and then the other thing is, while we're drafting a meaningful and inclusive document, what we need to think about is really the adoption, because once it's drafted, the member states who have to say, yes, we'll sign off on it, right? We'll adopt it. So the adoption piece we need to kind of think about, and eventually when it gets adopted, it comes back to a respective country to be ratified, unless we need to get it ratified so that it can be embedded into laws. Just like the Convention against all forms of discrimination against women, like that one was drafted, adopted, and then it's ratified, and that's why we see it into our laws, where we start to see the building the equality for women in terms of policy or laws. So I'll just stop there and basically to say that, you know, we have really done really a big achievement relative to our goal. And I think thank you to Jan and Maura for getting us into this, opening the door for this opportunity for us to focus on this. So while we celebrate, there's still lots of work to do. So stay up to date, and we'll send you more information about, you know, opportunities to get involved relative to the drafting piece. But I would like to then now pass it on to Famalda and Fiji, because they have the benefit of having adopted and ratified at a regional level a protocol on the human rights of older persons in Africa. So I think we could learn a lot from their experience. So I pass it back to you, Osna, and then on to others. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. This was quite optimistic. This was a milestone that passed. I just want to read one comment here from one of our Canadian members, Adele. She said, with the words diversity and inclusion being forbidden for the US in lots of official documentation, what will be the US position on this? I guess wait and see. If experience demonstrates anything, it might take more than 3.5 years to ratify, to draft an acceptable draft and then to send it for ratification. So I'm going to pass it on to Femada, and we'll end with Vijay.
All right. So I thought perhaps my my sharing with you is around the journey that we've been through in Africa in terms of having the protocol ratified, as Margaret had indicated. And I think in true African style, let's lean into some storytelling around the journey that we've been on, and what are some of the key takeouts that we take. You know, how can Africa shape a model for UN advocates as well. So in true storytelling fashion, start off with once upon a time, but maybe I'll change that a little bit and say not so long ago. It was in June last year that Africa's drumbeats forged a path to victory, uniting the continent to shape the rights of older persons. When the call came to draft a UN convention on the rights of older persons, Africa's advocates had already shown the world how to succeed. Their story, born in dusty villages and gleaming halls, is a lesson for all who now carry the pen of change. And here's what they did: a regional triumph lighting the way for global success. So here's some key things that we need to be thinking about, and who are the people, you know, so I'm gonna do this as storytelling, so hopefully you'll remember the names. So it began with an insider. You need somebody on the inside to help you unlock things. And I'm going to call this person, let's just call it a woman named Lekgowa. She walked the halls of the African Union corridors with purpose. She opened the doors to the decision makers. She guided civil society to the right moments, consultations, drafting reviews, to demand that elder rights like healthcare and dignity become a reality. Lekgowa taught advocates when to speak and how to be heard, ensuring Africa's voice shaped early frameworks. So what's the lesson we take from this? Is that you have to find your insider to navigate the UN's maze to amplify your cause. And this is not something new. Margaret and the team know all about this anyways, but I thought I'll just bring this in here. So what's the next thing? We need to find some knowledge partners, isn't it? So I'm going to call these knowledge partners Juma and Amina. They armed the movement with truth. Through a research consortium, they gathered data on elders' lives, poverty, care gaps, untapped wisdom. Their reports were shared with the AU and proved the need for legal protections. Their evidence gave advocates a steady beat to march onto. And the lesson here is that we have to build a foundation of facts with academics to make our case unassailable in the UN debates. So you need the numbers to prove your point. That's the lesson from Amina and Juma, our fictional research people. But they were real research people as well. So the next thing you need is a map, very much like Dora and the stories from childhood. But this map is not a map of lands. So Rosaline, I'm going to call her Rosaline, crafted a map of the allies. She charted every civil society group, elders' councils, women's networks, youth activists, detailing their strengths and gaps. Her work united them, ensuring no voice was lost in all of this clamor. With her map, advocates spoke as one, overwhelming doubts with clarity. So the lesson here in terms of how we take forward is to map civil society to coordinate a chorus that echoes through the UN halls. So if we want to amplify impact, we have to unite and we have to be able to map where people are. And this is where the strength of the Pass It On network lies. We have this access. We just need to bring it all together. And then we move on. So you need someone to rally the troops. So I'm going to call this person Kwame. Kwame rallied the troops, urging communities to write to their ministries. So I also had the call to say, write to your national minister, find out what's happening. And so we would write letters. And letters came in. It didn't pour in, but it did come in. And elders were demanding respect. Families were pleading for care systems until the governments could not ignore them. So we really have to make ourselves a nuisance so that the government listens. These voices pushed the African nations to back elder rights into global talks. So what's the lesson here? We have to stir grassroots passion to pressure the states and turning your local cries into UN priorities. So it really is about mobilizing resources at a community level. And then we have to have our early adopters and low-hanging fruit. So in terms of how the protocol was ratified in Africa, it started off in 2018. I think the first to ratify was Lesotho. And their systems are not as complex and not as it's not so hard to make the decisions. So Fatima, I'm going to call her, targeted the early adopters, nations like Lesotho, Benin, where support for elder rights faced fewer barriers. She met with their diplomats, securing swift pledges to champion the cause. These low-hanging fruits built momentum, proving that Africa's vision was real and urging others to join. So what's the lesson? Win easy allies first to spark a chain of support in the UN's divided ranks. So look for the low-hanging fruit. And then we move on to, I'm going to call this Zawadi. All right, and it's about linking agendas, tying elder rights to the battles for health, gender equity, justice. She rallied existing AU allies, groups that already were trusted in these policy fights to broaden the cause. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are people who know how to negotiate through this. Their joint proposal showed that the convention was not a win just for older people, it was a win for all. So what's the lesson? Weave your goal into the wider UN causes to build a coalition too big to dismiss. And then we come on to Chidi, who was about building capacity. And this capacity has to be built to sustain the dream. Chidi trained caregivers in elder care, blending village traditions with modern methods, and linking them through the regional networks. The hybrid models ensured rights would live beyond the paper. And advocates propose these systems in drafts. So what Chile did was give ammunition to the advocates so that they could prove that this will work. So the lesson here is to equip communities with skills and networks to prove that our convention is worth it to all these UN skeptics. And finally, we come on to who I'm going to call Nia and Tunde. These are wise leaders. They steer with steady hands. They calm the disputes with stories of past wins and refocus doubts with a vision of elders' dignity. And this is so important because sometimes the fight is a bit weary, isn't it? We get tired, and you need wise leadership to steer us along. So what's the lesson here? Is that we must trust our wise leaders to hold the movement together through the UN grind. So Africa's drumbeats won the day, embedded elder rights in a framework that inspires the world. So Lehoa's access, Juma and Amina's truth, Rosaline's unity, Kwame's fire, Fatima's strategy, Zawadi's alliances, and Chidi's systems. All of this brought together regional success. Now, as we look towards drafting our UN convention, let Africa guide us. It's about uniting, it's about strategizing, and it's about persisting. And the drumbeats will rise again. Thank you very much.
So many lessons. Thank you, Famada. We'll come back to them later. I want to take the opportunity and pass it on to Vijay for a short
Indeed.
address.
Thank you. Thank you, Osnat. Thank you, Margaret and Famada. I'm very much impressed by your presentation. I think me from Timor, Human Rights Mauritius, we are best known for our campaign along, the media, engaging with ministers and so on. As soon as the decision was taken at the HRC Human Rights Council, we received a communication from Elaine Graham from GAROP, template, which we exploited, arranged it in such a way that we sent it to ministers, line ministers in government immediately, and reminding them that what we have been doing for the past 13, 14 years have culminated into this decision at the HRC in Geneva. Now we are not going to rest on our laurels. Not to say the real work starts now, but a major work is, we are expecting something great from now. What is it? That the government should be vocal, should participate in the discussions, in providing what we as the civil society we are looking for, because we want to be engaged in the drafting of the convention. Why not? We have got ideas, we have got, we are inspired, we have been living literally the struggle for a convention. I think with that experience, we could bring valuable contribution. Now, the grassroots is very important. We have been going around the country. We shall go again. We have already started going around the country, meeting the associations of older people, telling them what has happened in Geneva. They have to know. They have to know, and we have a duty to tell them what has happened, the fruits of our labor. Now, what we have done, we have gone in the media. We have got 2 pages in our newspaper every Monday. We have illustrated the decisions taken at the HRC. We've gone on television. We've gone on all the radio stations. We have given an interview. Now, we need to have a solid base. In order to have that, we need people, the masses, the people to be behind us, so that when we go and discuss with government, we know that we are not alone. It's like not being isolated. We have to prove that we have got the locus. Now, with the protocol, we have got a long struggle again with the AU protocol to bring government to sign it and to ratify. Still, Mauritius had signed, yes, in 2021, but hasn't ratified it, which means that we have got in parallel two things to do: to bring government to ratify the protocol, but also to start getting involved, interested in the writing up of the drafting of the convention. We have, in the wake of this continuum in our campaign, created a GMOA Senior, which is an entity within GMOA itself, senior members, more the senior people, I mean the aged people who have the respectability, the capacity, the inspiration to add to our voice in order that when we go and speak again with policymakers, we can make it through. Now, it is very important to mobilize the people all the time through communicating with them with all the means that we have at our end, media, outreaching them physically, and intervening all the time that we have, an opportunity to do so. So we have made it clear that an intergovernmental working group will begin drafting the convention. The government of Mauritius, our mission in Geneva, and whoever concerned in the line ministry should all be calling us, not only GMOA, but other NGOs in the country, like one spokesperson, like one spokesman for civil society, to say what we want to be included in the convention, because the convention will be an international system that will be binding upon all governments. So in very simple language, I have been telling you what we keep telling the people in Mauritius: policymakers, civil society, private sector, academia. So I'll stop here. I've been very short, Usnat. So I'll stop here, and then if we have the opportunity to contribute to the discussions, I'll come back. I'm here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Vijay. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Famada and Margaret. I'm looking here. There are so many lessons from Vijay, from Margaret, and from Famada, and some of them is find allies, write to your policymakers and elected officials, find the early adopters that will support you, and you can rally them around that vision. And the most important thing is translating the vision from paper to practice by doing all the different things that we heard about from our contributors here. So usually we go for 10, 12 minutes breakout rooms, but we will not do it today because we want to respect your time here. So what I'd like to offer now is an open-ended question, and I invite you to just raise your digital hand and share your reflections and your ideas. How can we as pioneers help close some of the gaps we've been hearing about today? And I will start with Catherine.
Great, thank you. Sorry, Osnan, I had my hand raised before the question, so let me see if I can incorporate an answer that works for you too. But I was going to ask Margaret, one of the frustrations I found in all the years of advocacy volunteering is we don't, and many groups don't, we don't have any kind of composite or way to reach all the different groups that you, Vijay, say you've consulted, all the older persons associations. And I've asked at the UN, and of course with the staff of 3, there's no way Amal could do that. And I know there are complicated issues because disability tried to do it, and they tried to host a kind of a common way that you could just send out an email saying this to all the different groups. And the problem was it was going to be hosted in one NGO, and the others said, no, we're not sharing our information. So I'm just wondering, other than each of us doing what we can, and obviously we will, is there any effort, and maybe Margaret, you've heard through GAROP, is there any effort to figure out how to do some kind of way to get better information? Because we're going to need it for the next 5 to 10 years. It took over a decade to get the ratification for CRPD. So I know we're going to need it, but I haven't heard of any solution. Has anyone heard of something other than all of our efforts individually?
Yeah, so if we're thinking or we're contemplating in particular to human rights related information, no, you're thinking all, right? You're thinking all, Kathy. I think that one is a little bit more challenging because unless there's a global anchor, because for example, the global anchor generally for human rights is, GAROP does not do it all, but it does its best in terms of being that conduit, that place of holding information, and we'll be doing more of that. We're looking for ways and funding to do more of that for human rights. But if we're thinking broadly about aging, where we cover, healthy aging, the urban aging issue, and all the different dynamics, we'll need a global organization that is willing to step up to champion that, and we all help fund that kind of infrastructure. So I think it's a good question because there's so much out there already. We shouldn't be repeating. We should be just building off and acting as fast as we can. So I think, yeah, maybe it's a discussion to have with some of, getting together some of the key aging NGOs and then discuss how to do that. Yeah, that's yeah.
Not to take up much time, I think the biggest issue, quite frankly, that we've encountered is everyone's, I understand why, but it's frustrating, need to keep their own contacts private, whether it's for fundraising, whether it's for generating visibility. So they don't want to share emails. And I would love to talk to somebody who is more technically, maybe you, Isaac, I don't know. Is there a way to create a coalition where you keep private somebody's database, but it somehow gets disseminated throughout a coalition? That's kind of my question. And if you come up with an answer, please let me know. I'll put my email in. I'm based here in New York. I'd love to work on that. And I know other people would too. But it would have to be something that somehow protects the privacy of each group's, especially the large group, because I know they don't even share it with themselves. I mean, you know that, Margaret. You can't get them to share. So it would have to be something where, it's sort of like a BCC or something that retains the privacy.
I go back to the story that Femada told us, and somewhere there was a part where a map was created of all the allies. And Femada, what was the mechanism behind that?
So it was something that, I don't know if Rosaline is here, Rosaline from HelpAge International, when we were looking at trying to map where people are, she worked quite a lot with the Lifogo from the AU around a mapping of civil society organizations. So it's really about creating a database so that you can disseminate information. And I think when we're looking at how we bring people together, we really have to be very clear about what do we want to communicate. And yes, people won't share all of their information, but what do we want to use it for? Do we want to use it for informing? Do we want to use it for mobilizing? What are we trying to achieve? And I think that would determine how you set up the platform and how you connect people. So maybe that must be part of the conversation, Margaret, even through GAROP, when we're looking at next steps. We need to be very clear about what is the question we want answered. So if we want to connect people, what do we want to, for what purpose are we wanting to connect people? Because I think if we're clear, then we may be able to to take that forward. And I think we must address the concerns people have. You know, we are all swimming in the same pond when it comes to trying to fundraise, and so people hold on to the information. These are real fears, these are real issues. And so we must address that, and we must be clear about why we need people on board. We want our voice to be elevated. And so I think we just have to approach this with honesty, and also address the fears that people have, and put in place all of the checks and balances. But I do agree with Catherine. I think we need to tap into the wonderful creativity of young people, because they can find a solution for everything. They'll find an app and say, okay, let's use this app and it'll just get us connected. But, you know, tech is moving at such a high pace. We just need to be clear about what do we want to achieve.
Famada, I have another question as I'm listening to you and Kathy and Margaret and everybody. Who is the we? Who are the we? You were saying we need to know whether we want to inform or mobilize or anything like this. And there are some assumptions there that there's a we, the wise elders, that is the core of this we thing. And I'm just posing the question, who is the we? So we know where is it? And who do we support?
I think we all have a role to play. So when I say we, I'm part of that as well. And I think everyone who's on this call today, I hear because you believe that you are part of the change. So however you decide to frame your allegiance or frame your group, the pathway to the UN Convention is going to be paved by many groups coming together. So the we right now is the Pass It On Network, and it could be the regional chapters of the Pass It On Network. It could be civil society organizations that we are independently a part of as well. You know, advocacy and lobbying is really about understanding where people are, which networks they are able to influence, and bringing that together. Just my thoughts around it. So I'm happy to roll up my sleeves and help out too.
Yeah, thank you, Famada. It really goes back to everybody mapping who are their allies that around them. And it may not be some kind of central global something organization that dispenses information and direction. It may be just a thing that is in your own neighborhood.
Yeah.
Moira and then Vijay.
In the local context, the we isn't only all the people engaged in the advocacy campaign. The we includes academia, younger people, because younger people have to understand the needs, aspirations of older people. So we have included them in that group of people to strengthen our voice. So the we is diverse. It's the church, it's the parish, it's the socio-cultural organizations, it's the youth. So the we is diverse in the local context. Thank you.
Sorry, just a naive thing. Couldn't we just start with all the members of the open-ended working group before that database disappears off the UN's site?
Can I just jump in here? Moira, what we could do is create an ebook where all of this information could be kept in one place, and then we can see how we can make it into a document that could be put forward. Because we've got a lot of stuff floating about, and unless it's kept in one place, it will be very hard to analyze what it is we want to do with it.
That's a good suggestion, Valerie. I'm noting it down.
One thing that I'm working on an ebook project, and I'd like to say something more about that. But the one thing that's holding me back at the moment is that my technical skills aren't good enough to know which is the best free program that's available on the internet. There are lots of free programs now, but we need some of the younger people to look at them and say, yeah, that's a good one, use that, or don't use that one.
A call to younger people. Thank you, Valerie. Margaret, you next.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about where our conversation has traveled since and there's so many different aspects, which is really wonderful. I think I just want to share that in terms of human rights of older persons. I think for the Global Alliance for the Rights of Older People, we've been trying to really work on the we and the how and the what. So, for example, when we did the strategy, because GAROP has now the new strategy from 2025 to 2028, I believe, we actually went out to all the GAROP members, which is global around the world, to get the opinions on what what it should be in terms of strategy. We did stakeholder mapping from the level of like the key stakeholders, the NHRIs, the different international thematic organizations, that should be involved because older people are diverse, right, in terms of gender and abilities and so forth. So I think if it's human rights related, I really encourage you to come on board and be part of that to help build on and make it even stronger in terms of the approach, the what, and the how. And that's why we have like different, we invite folks to different briefings and whatnot, so that we can be coordinated in that way. By no means is it perfect. We're still kind of like picking up things along the way sometimes, but we're better than where we were. And I think if we could just go back to Catherine's original question, if it's a central database in terms of information where it could be shared as a commons, then I think it is really going back to like, why are we doing this? Right. And it's interesting because Tom is kind of exchanging with me in the chat about the UN agency document, which is actually the UN agency document on aging. And it's prepared for the advocacy purpose for the social summit coming up. So it's the first time, like I know the UN interagency, I've heard about them, is where, the various UN agency groups come together on a perspective or a topic, but it's the first time I've seen a document from them. I might not, there might have been other documents I haven't seen, but I really love the way that they framed it around aging. So if there's something parallel to that, then that might be the thing. It might not be the thing to build on the idea that Catherine has. So I think it's really figuring out, like to Mada's point, and what is it that we wants to be done, and then going from there. Like think about the strategy first before we go to the tactics of building like the tool, or because I've learned that many times through different work I do. It's really kind of the focus, the mission, and the strategy, and then you build the tools. And then to Maura, what you said about the open-ended working group on aging, one of the early recommendations we had for this resolution for the intergovernmental working group to start drafting, we did persist and say we want to see how we can bring in the groups that were already accredited through the open-ended working group on aging to be part of this without kind of going through ECOSOC. But that was really pushed further down the agenda because the first thing was to get the member state to agree with drafting. So that's some of the things that we can push for. And then if you can join the April 30th meeting, like it'll be really powerful to hear from members saying, yeah, let's really push for this and how can we do this? Because it's actually intergovernmental, right? So meaning that it's an integral part, but it's not an official UN proceedings. So therefore, maybe we can be more, we can take some flexibility with the process. So I do encourage April 30th. I don't have the sign-in information yet or that because our secretariat took a week off after being in Geneva for that whole time, running up and down and all that stuff. So we soon we'll get the link out to OSNAC and Maura. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. There's so many moving parts there. I still go back to what Mada said before with the map and finding allies and getting a single voice. And it's amazing to me that we're and hopeful that we're expecting the civil society and all of the NGOs to have a single voice when it takes so much time to get a single voice out of the people in the UN. And it's a question for Femada, asking how did the people, the alliance that was created there, what did it take to get a single voice to impact the policymakers?
So, yeah, go ahead, Mother. Then
Yeah. I think firstly, I mustn't create this impression that there was a single voice. I think that it was different people that came together at different times, but we had a common agenda. So there's, I think one of the things that Africa is really blessed with is diversity. So there's diversity in terms of the way the thinking happens, but there's also diversity in terms of where people are in their aging journey. So part of the conversations with the civil society organizations was about understanding how this will impact at a local level and allaying those fears that people have, so if this country were to support it, what does that mean? Do they have the resources and all the rest of it? So I think the journey to a single voice is not straightforward. I think perhaps what is more important is the single message, and then having the conversations with different civil society organizations about what does that message mean for you? Does it resonate? How do we include it? So I think we just need to reframe that a little bit. Does that make sense, Osnet?
Yes, and let's see what Margaret has to say about that too.
Yeah, I think it's a single voice or a collective voice, right? So for example, with the Age of Rights, it was created based on input, like we want a rally cry for older people, human rights. What is it? So we went out to the membership, we came up with this, and everybody, thankfully, around the world supported it. And we have the Age of Rights Global Rally, Age of Rights campaign, and so forth. But I think the coalition itself, any coalition, can come together and have collective voice. So when we're at the UN, like before we go into the UN, we have a drafting, right, process, and VJ has been a lead or a participant in a different drafting where a statement is presented on behalf of the Global Alliance of more than 400 organizations. This is how we position it at the UN. It's not GAROP. GAROP is just a platform. It's the organizations 400 plus within the Global Alliance that's making the statement. And in doing so, when we come up with a statement, and VJ will know very well, it's really getting like some key members to start drafting and they go out to the membership for input so that it becomes, everybody can have an opportunity to shape that message that we want to give. So I think those are some of the ways to create that single voice, even within the message. There would still be like local diversity. If I bring it back to Canada, the key theme would be there, but I need to context it locally to what's relevant to the situation in Canada, right? So I think there is opportunities to do that. So I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
There's a note from Catherine. Catherine, maybe you want to ask that question, just continuing what Margaret was saying.
Unmute. Yeah, my doctorate was in organizational change, so this always interests me, this kind of a conversation. It was many years ago, but as an older adult, I got it. I was just thinking, and we have talked to people who worked hard on the most recent treaty on the rights of persons with disabilities, but I don't recall, and maybe others do, how did other constituencies go about getting their treaties in terms of forming that kind of coalition? How did the decisions get made? How did they coordinate overall? How did they decide who was or wasn't included? How they made decisions? And then ultimately, how is it funded for such a group? Because it takes an enormous amount of effort. So I just thought we could learn from going back to the CRPD people, which I know we've talked to, Margaret, but I don't remember if they ever addressed that issue that we're now talking about. Might be useful.
Yeah, so absolutely, Kath. Catherine. It's an opportunity to figure out how they continue with that process. I think what I heard from folks is that with the CRPD, we had very powerful US presence or local presence, so that when we were presenting, we as civil society, they were actually very adamant advocates, very vocal on the floor, and it didn't take that long. If I remember, it's like 2 years to reach drafting. No, more than that? Okay. So yeah, it also took a long time. Okay. So, but then, so I think the flavor could be different, but you're right. We need to kind of learn from that in terms of just like how we're learning today from the African region experience, and what would the adoption look like? How did they go through with the drafting process? So that's meaningful. And then eventually the ratification. So I think that's the work that we need to do still. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Valerie, briefly.
Very briefly. Well, first of all, let's just say Happy Easter to everybody. Easter is here, very nearly, and I would like you all to plant a tree. And if you plant a tree, you're also helping the environment. So,
okay.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Thank you, Valerie.
I have a kind of a radical idea, and it really just thought about it. So I'm going to put it out there. I haven't thought it through completely as yet, so I'm just trusting that you take it as it is. I think what we really need, because I just see the UN is taking forever, and there's so many variables going on here, so many different pieces. We need a big ally that is global in scope and extremely technology orientated to pull this all together. I'm thinking about, like, if I had a magic wand going to some place like the Bill Gates Foundation, and here's a huge technology enterprise that's doing a ton of good in the world. They've got connections all over the world that could really begin, if nothing else, begin to pull this all together. And with their capability, with somebody's there's capabilities in artificial intelligence, be able to really sort of map all these things that are going on, be able to show what's in common between this country in Africa and this town in Canada. I mean, it's a huge, there's just so much detail, but it's able to be handled with something like AI. If you could get a big foundation such as the Gates Foundation involved, that could really help pull it all together. And then I think it would be just a huge step forward to be able to do that. And as we're talking about all the different areas that are involved, it's just, all over the map. And what we really need is a well-defined map for where we are. Otherwise, we're never going to get to where we want to be. I know that's like magical thinking at this point, but you never know. There's somebody here, or somebody might know somebody that can, go to somebody in some place like the Gates Foundation and see what happens. I mean, I think we really have to begin thinking out of the box a little bit. Otherwise, I can't imagine waiting another 4 or 5 years to really sort of move this along.
It's a very interesting thought, Doug. And the image that came to my mind was a quilt. And quilt is made from pasting or stitching together smaller pieces. And again, the image of Femada and the map of who are the allies that you have immediately around you, that's the metaphor for me, is to make a big map, you need a whole bunch of small maps stitched together, which is the technical aspect of it. And maybe a few steps in between where we are today and where you vision, that the one that you just articulated, is to start creating those small maps of allies around each and every one of us, be an organization or an individual. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to wrap up our formal part of the conversation. We started with a hopeful message about our co-founder, Jan Hively, of being in a really very fragile situation health-wise, and perhaps moving home there's no place like home, and being there surrounded by her family and all of us. I will put again in the chat the link where you can leave her messages. It was a very compassionate and a supportive and resilient conversation today, not only about Jan, but also about where we're going and how motivated we are to change the lives of older adults all over the world. So let's continue this, maintaining this communication channel, and come back here every month and find connections within our network and carry it out to the networks that you have yourself. And in this spirit, our next call is on the 12th of May, and we're going to welcome here a pioneer, an author, and an activist, Rick Moody. And Rick is going to speak with us about how to be an eco-elder. He's going to speak about navigating aging and climate change. We spoke before about how aging touches all kinds of domains, whether it's economic or political or health or whatever, and the ecological, the environmental and sustainability aspect is no less important. So come back on the 12th of May with Rick Moody. So this is we're formally closing and seamlessly moving into the next 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just, when Doug was talking, he reminded me of the Eisner Foundation, which has grants available now. There's a window, though, I believe it ends sometime mid-May. But if you can add an intergenerational component to your thinking, that's their focus right now. So think in terms of creativity, ideas, intergenerational input, and the Eisner, it's EISNER, the Eisner Foundation, and see if you can put the three together, and there may be some possibilities for people.
Okay, thank you. Verna?
Yes, I just wanted to say there's a close connection between how you introduced the meeting about Jan and the work we talked about during the meeting. Famata uses a beautiful term, and she says advocacy and loving. And that's what this is about. There's that emotional element to it, which makes us stronger. And so this is all very important.
Thank you, Verna.
Hi.
Yeah, Nancy, please.
I just want to thank all of you so very much. And the last speaker just said it very well. I felt my doorbells ringing. My mother would say, the holy voice of God. Okay. But I just felt the love you have within yourself and for one another, for Jan. And I was awed by all the work you've already done. Of course, to you, it's secondhand, but to me, it's all new. And I'm thankful to Joyce Cohen for inviting me today. And I would like to continue participating because, you know, inclusion and diversity are dear to my heart. And I'm very sad with what's happening in the United States. And so thank you for today. And I will go answer my door, but I'll see you in May. All my love. This is Nunziata, and I'm originally from Sicily, La Conca d'Oro. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My sincere apologies for joining late. My name is Ines Bautista from Ecuador and resident here in Miami. I have a foundation to promote active life. unhealthy lifestyle among older adults. I would like to get young people involved in these topics. Everyone wants to live longer, but no one wants to grow old or even think about it. So it's very important, to more people to engage with this topic, to promote the unhealthy life, to be a support to this population, also to be active and included in why not, in the economies? But is we have to provide the ways that population. So for me, it's very important to involve in the young people. So thank you for the invitation for today. I really would like to see more also to involve in this soon, others young people to talk about this topic.
Thank you, Inez. Any other comments? Any other thoughts?
I'd like to ask Inez how she knew about us. How did you get here?
Yeah. How did you find us, Inez?
I received an email because when I told you I have a foundation in Ecuador, we created like 5 years ago. When I moved to United States in Miami, my foundation have 2 years here too. So every time I try to involve to the other organization, to the others foundation and profit to follow the same goal to benefit this population. Also, I am a psychologist. In my country, I was a director of all of the service, the public service to the adult center adults in Ecuador. More than 1,800 senior citizen in my country, more than 16 centers to provide free service with therapy, to therapy like physical, psychology, and social. I was the pioneer for the first running for the senior citizens, so I really like my work. It's not like a work. It's like
I'd like to get in touch with you so that you can help us find a Pasadena Network person in Ecuador.
Thank you. I will put right the name, my foundation. I really appreciate if you follow us. Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Inez. Good. We have just a few short minutes here. Verna, your turn, and then we kind of wrap up.
I just wanted to respond to Inez. The Stanford University, the Center on Longevity, was reporting on poll numbers from Gen X saying that they desperately want to talk to elders, and they're growing older and they need instructions, they need mentoring. So we're trying to get even virtually a group together of elders and Gen X together. So yeah, I think again, we focus intergenerational, but actually doing brass tacks and sitting down and talking. I mean, they're asking us. I mean, that's a lovely invitation. So we're trying to, if anybody has any thoughts, let me know.
Well, I think we'd like at Pasadena Network for you to be the pilot in that, and then see whether no, seriously, and see whether we can follow up with other people and get it going, because I think that whole mentoring thing is more and more important.
I have the elders if we can find the Gen X.
Right. This is perhaps where Joyce can help us.
Yes.
Berna, put your info in the chat so that we know how to reach you, because I would love to talk with you.
Great.
We just saw
what about Barbara?
Wonderful demonstration of how our network works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
everybody, thank you very much for being here today. Moira, is there anything that you'd like to bookend the last few minutes?
Well, I think it's been a roller coaster day as far as I'm concerned, and this has been very, very calming for me because it's just been so constructive and positive, and to hear, straightforward what's been happening with Margaret and with Famada, and I loved Famada's way of presenting it, bro. First class, the stories and VJ, and just to feel the energy behind all of that and the interest from everybody to go on and to do more. So Margaret, I'm sure you can expect a lot of people at your 30th April meeting. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret, Vijay, and Famada, for carrying us through today and answering so many important questions. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We are continue to be inspired by Jan's resilience and vision. Sure. And we'll see you all again on the 12th of May with Rick Moody on climate change and the aging in an aging world.
Great.